and I couldn't even remember him mentioning names of fellow workers very often. The late afternoon sun poked dustily through a vent at the far end of the attic. Characteristically for October, the temperature had dipped into the 30s overnight, but climbed to something over 70 this afternoon. In sweatshirt, jeans, and heavy socks, I realized I was becoming sticky. I gathered the small group of loose papers with the little notebook and jammed them into my back pocket, unplugged the vacuum cleaner, and pulled the light cord before heading shakily down the ladder. Rusty danced little circles around me when I finally descended, glad to see me back on familiar ground again. I let him out to romp in the backyard while I put my cleaning stuff away and carried the boxes I'd originally planned to store back up the ladder. 30 minutes later, I realized my back was aching, and I was stickier than ever. I stripped off the jeans and sweatshirt and spent 15 luxurious minutes under the shower. The outside temperature had begun to drop back to evening levels by the time I wrapped myself in a terry robe and let Rusty back in. He shot me a winsome look while I fixed myself a plate of crackers and cheese and poured a glass of wine. I filled his bowl with yummy nuggets and carried my feast into the living room, where I could watch the news and look back through Dad's papers while I ate. Have Hannah cancel dentist. Hannah, his secretary. What was her last name? I sipped at my wine. I could picture her in my mind. Shirt-waist dresses, dark hair in a bun, sensible shoes. She'd probably been in her 50s at the time I'd met her as a young kid tagging along on errands with my mother. She'd have to be 70 or more today. I wondered if she was still in Albuquerque, or even still living. Hannah. What was her last name? I flipped through the loose papers that had been rubber banded together with the notebook. Several of them were pink telephone messages, faded now to pale salmon. Jack Cudahy, X243, was the only thing written on one of them. Jack Cudahy, our congressman? I didn't realize he'd ever been affiliated with Sandia. 243 must have been his phone extension. No number was given because it was an internal call. The slip was dated April 10, and the initials at the bottom were HS. Hannah Simmons. The name clicked into place easily. My feet were getting cold, so I went into my bedroom for a pair of socks, then carried my empty dinner plate to the kitchen. I pulled the phone book from the cupboard beside the kitchen phone and looked up Simmons. There were probably 20 of them, but only 2 beginning with H, Harold and HB. I vaguely remembered that Hannah had not been married, so I took a chance that she was HB. Miss Simmons, I hope I have the right number. I apologize. Did you work at Sandia Labs years ago? The voice sounded elderly and hesitant. The reason I ask is that my father was a scientist there, and I'm trying to locate his secretary. Are you Bill Parker's daughter? She asked. I acknowledged that I was. Well, Charlie, for goodness sakes. You know, I often wondered about you kids after Bill and Arlene died. We're all doing fine, thanks. I explained briefly that I'd just come across some reminders of Dad and told her I'd like to get together with someone who knew him well. Why don't you come over tomorrow? She invited. I just got a sack of apples from Dixon. My neighbor drove me up there this morning, and I was planning on baking a pie. I'll do it in the morning, and we can have us a cup of tea and a nice visit. She gave me directions, and I told her I'd be there around 2:00. I hung up the phone feeling a mixture of anticipation and dread.